Hi, this is Samia Rashid coming to you from SWH Apparel with a very short tutorial on the garment manufacturing process. The first step in this sequence is design and sketch. Now this is where the designer sketches the garment that is intended to be made. Now this is a creative process, so no details are sketched in, just drawing to get a lot of versions of the particular garment for the management to choose. The details are going to come in later. Now the decision is made and a few designs are picked for development. The sketches are then rendered in detail or as a collection. The technical flats are developed along with the sketches to help the pattern maker understand the patterns involved and the construction. The next step is pattern design. The pattern maker develops the first pattern in a sample size of the designer's choosing. The purpose of developing the first pattern is to create a sample garment to test the fit and construction. The next step is sample making. The first patterns are sent to the sewing unit for assembling them into a garment. This is usually sewn in muslin, which is an inferior quality of fabric and it reduces cost. This sample is constructed to analyze the pattern fit and design too, because a lot of times this pattern is sketched and it looks great on a stick, but when you actually sew it up and put it on someone, you start to see a few flaws, and this is the time to catch that. After the sample garment is stitched, it is reviewed by a panel of designers, pattern makers, and sewing specialists. If any changes have to be made, they are made at this time. The next step is production pattern. The pattern design is now taken for creating the production patterns. The production pattern is one which will be used for the large production of garments. The pattern maker makes the pattern on standard pattern making paper. Garment patterns can be constructed by two means, either manually or by a CAD/CAM method. A garment sewing pattern is developed by a series of calculations taking into account the following measurements, either using a sew-by sample or what's called a direct sample, specification sheet, which is a measurement chart, is usually a spreadsheet, actual body measurements, ease allowance, and sewing allowances. The allowances are different for different types of fabrics and patterns. Next comes grading. The purpose of grading is to create patterns in different standard sizes. Grading a pattern is really scaling a pattern up or down in order to adjust it for multiple sizes. Manual grading is a tedious and cumbersome task as a pattern maker has to adjust every pattern's armhole, neck, sleeve cap, and wrist, and either some other parts too. It's not fun. An easier way is to use the digital CAD system, which is easier and much faster. Next is marker making. The measuring department determines the fabric yardage needed for each style and size of garment. Computer software helps the technicians create the optimum fabric layout to suggest so fabric can be used efficiently. Markers made in accordance to the patterns are attached to the fabric with the help of adhesive stripping or staples. Markers are laid in such a way so that minimum possible fabric doesn't get wasted during the cutting operation. After marking the garment, manufacturer will get the idea of how much fabric he or she has to order in advance for the construction of garments. Therefore, careful execution is important in this step. After marker making comes the spreading. Now, spreading is done with the help of what we call spreading machines. The fabric is stacked one on top of the other in layers and may extend as long as 100 feet depending on the length of the table. Now, they are also stacked in what's called plies. Plies are nothing more than the fabric pieces stacked on top of each other. So you're going to hear this term quite a bit in the industry saying, you know, how many plies is it? So what they're saying is, how many stacks do we have here? So this should be a really good word for you to remember when you're talking to the factory in terms of cutting. After spreading comes cutting. The fabric is then cut with the help of cloth cutting machines suitable for the type of cloth. These can be band cutters or rotary cutters or laser cutters. If the cutting is performed manually, the operator will develop what's called a cut sheet or cut ticket, which tells how many pieces to cut per style, per color, per size. After the fabric is cut, it is bundled and sorted. The sorter sorts the patterns according to size and design and makes bundles of them. This step requires a lot of precision because making bundles of mismatched patterns can create severe problems. On each bundle, there are specifications of the style, size, and the marker too is attached with it. Now, if the marker isn't attached, you'll have a problem because things are going to get mixed up. And if you don't have your bundle ticket attached, you're going to have problems as well. So this is obviously a very critical step in the processing. The bundles are then taken over to the sewing operation area for sewing and assembling. Now they're ready to be stitched, and the sewing operators will unbundle them at their workstations, or in some factories, a supervisor will unbundle them in a staged area and then deliver cut pieces to a specific operator to work on. So if someone is sewing cuffs, that person will get all the cuffs. If someone's sewing a collar, they'll do all the collars. If someone is sewing the yokes to the backs, back bodice, they'll get those parts. Very rarely in factories do sewing operators complete the entire garment. In this process, they'll watch out for mismatch, or try to watch out for mismatched pieces as much as possible. And in most factories, it's better, they like to keep the work in-house, and it's critical because they can control the quality of work and check the operator's work. After the garments are assembled or sewn, they are taken to an inspection quality control staging area. Now, during quality control, garments are inspected against a quality control check sheet, checking for such things as open seams, wrong stitching techniques, non-matching threads, missing stitches, improper creasing of the garment, erroneous thread tension, raw edges are some of the stitching defects which can severely affect the garment, and it'll have to be pulled out, and the factory will have to do what we call eating that garment. They can't send that garment on, so they're going to lose money. Now, if the garments pass the quality control, they're then sent on to the next step, which is the pressing and finishing. In this phase, the garments are pressed to remove wrinkles, cuffs are creased and collars are creased, hems are pressed, so the garment has a nice, clean look. The next step is what we call the final inspection. This is the step before the garment is packaged. Therefore, it's crucial at this point to catch any and everything that may have been missed in the initial quality control before the garment is put in a package and sent off to the customer. So at this point, we're looking for things like discoloration, mismatched dyes, erroneous thread tension again, non-matching threads that may have been missed. Size defects come into play now. Wrong labels sewn in the garment. So those are some of the things that are looked for in the final inspection. Now, if the garment passes the final inspection, the next step is the packing. The finished garments are finally sorted on the basis of design and size and packed to send for distribution to retail outlets. Now, the shipping The packaging has been done and everything is staged in a different area. It's sent over to the shipping area. So in the shipping area, the inventory is shipped to the customer via an agreed upon method, either truck, ship, or air. Now that we've gone through the entire sequence of the garment manufacturing process, let's recap what you've learned. You've learned that there are exactly 15 steps. There may be a few more depending on the factory in the actual garment manufacturing process. Those steps start with the sketch of the garment. The next step is going to be pattern design, sample making, production pattern, the grading, the marker making, spreading, cutting, sorting, bundling, sewing, assembling, inspection, quality control, pressing, finishing, and then a final inspection, packing, and shipping it out of the door to the customer. So you should be well armed when you work with a factory now or talk to a factory. You'll have the terminology, you'll know the sequence, and that way you'll be able to develop a top-notch product to ship to your customers.